reports are many at this point, but they're kind of all over the place. Celtics considered front runners for Aaron Gordon, though, a couple people who reported it are also like, it's not close. I guess, the skinny at this point is Celtics got to 2 firsts, which gets them in line with what Houston had offered, which was the clubhouse leader in terms of best offer on the table so far for Gordon. And Gordon doesn't want to go there because he wants to go for a team that has a shot at contending. And obviously Houston's not one of them. So Celtics seem to, Celtics seem to edge ahead there. You might meaning you will extend with the Celtics because they are clearly in a path.
Nobody wants to go to Houston right now.
Nobody wants to go to Houston. I also perplexed by the move by Houston. What are you doing? What are you trading for people for? You just dumped people to get these picks. Now you're going to give them away. Are you nuts? So I don't get it. And
they should be collecting at this point. Just collect pieces everywhere.
Also, Houston's picks have to be heavily, heavily protected because they're not going to give away a fucking top 5 pick, which they're going to get, top 2 pick they're going to get in the next year or two. Right. So that's going to be a can you got to kick down the road, which Memphis has to consider as well. The protections on that will probably stretch those picks out for another 5, 6, 7 years, which means the Celtics get it. That's fine, right? Where this gets weird and wrinkly is like now you need to get Evan Fournier is involved in it as well, potentially, and that the Celtics need to offer a player. And when you start to do the math here, there's some people who are saying like, well, in order to make it work, you might have to do Tristan and Smart and part of your TPE to get Fournier and Gordon in here. And at that point, it's like, what are we doing? Like,
right.
But you called this, John. You called it in the very beginning. When everyone got excited about the TPE talk, what was the first thing that came out of your mouth? You're going to take another team's garbage along with the guy that you want so badly. Right? It's like deja vu, remember? And like, here we are, and now watch the Celtics fans get upset at one of their favorite prospects or younger Celtics players is on the move, and then think to themselves, well, why didn't Danny do something before? Because that's what happens when you have the TPE.
But here's the question, because this is for you guys. So what do you think? So this is where it gets sticky. Like we're debating it on the thread. I'm all over the place on this. Like I don't love Gordon. And again, Jimmy asked this question. I don't know what he's good at.
Jimmy loves Gordon now.
I don't know what he's good at. I know he has a great athletic profile. He's a switchable defender, kind of an athletic 4. He can allow you to play different sorts of lineups in there, which is great. He's not an elite shooter. He's actually not an elite defender when he switches on legitimate threes. He can't keep them in front of him by any means.
Cool.
He's passable in that regard. I saw some statistic that he's one of the worst, if not the worst, high usage pick and roll players in the NBA right now. So there's a lot of things he's not great at, but he can jump and he's athletic and he's only 26. And you think, I think again, everyone's like, well, he shot 40% from 3 this year before this recent stretch where he's gone like 3 for his last 20 post ankle injury. And that's depressed the stats a little. I think people are locking into that 40 from 3, almost the same way we did with Marcus Smart a couple years ago when he ticked up to about 36, 37. Everyone's like, well, if he 40. Shoots that well, he's a totally different player. I think you're hoping Gordon is more than he is, but I don't know if he is that yet. What do you guys think just of the player, Gordon, before we get into the deals?
Okay, I'll go first.
You go first.
So I did text you guys. I was like, what does Aaron Gordon actually do well? And I don't know if there's one thing that stands out like way above the rest, but I will say, in order to convince myself that this was a good idea for the Celtics, I just did what anybody would do. I just typed in Aaron Gordon highlights on YouTube, and I just started watching them.
You got the best of the best.
And positive vibes only. I don't want to see anything he does wrong. I just want to see everything he does well. And the one thing that I will say, based on the only awesome things I saw, this guy
half of it was the dunk contest.
This guy's dangerous in the paint. He's a force driving to the basket. He's somebody that you don't want to get in the way of. He does play above the rim. I think that he does have like that aggressiveness, like that presence that we always are saying, like, why doesn't Jaylen drive? Why doesn't Tatum drive? Why don't these guys drive and create contact and, get to the line and all that stuff? I think Aaron Gordon has that ability. He's get the big frame. He can play that 4 position well. And I think, you guys already mentioned it, like it allows him to do a couple of different things on defense. So those are like the Aaron Gordon positives. Now, he can't shoot. he's gonna be one of those players where if he's taking 3-pointers, you're basically like, why? You probably don't want him taking threes or taking those long twos.
It's gonna be like Marcus taking threes.
Exactly. So that's where you're gonna have to like the pros and the cons there.
Some will go in, but you don't really want him. He
Right.
doesn't make you better shooting team.
I don't think that's why they want him. I think if he does what he can do well, which is gets him full steam ahead. Him and Rob out there at the same time. I mean, those are two guys that would be pretty big forces above the rim there. So there might be some positives to it. But obviously, when you're talking about a TPE type guy and this time of year, there are certainly going to be players available that have their flaws. So I'm sure that he checks off all those boxes too.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it has to do with what's in his arsenal, right? He doesn't do anything particularly great, but his athleticism, what he can do defensively, his capabilities. I think Brad sees that and says, I can work with that. That's a significant upgrade to Shemi Ojale or maybe even Grant Williams. I know Grant had a good game tonight, but he hasn't been able to get consistency from that 4 spot. And I think it's getting to a point where he's like, look, I need to get a guy who I know I can transform into that player that I need him to be. And I'm not surprised that these various reports are saying that the Celtics were interested in not only Aaron Gordon this year, but the last 2 years, right?
That's crazy to me.
Deadline. And that doesn't surprise me because when Brad Stevens or Danny Ainge, when they have a guy in mind or someone on the radar, that guy's going to stick around for 3+ years or whatever the case may be. We don't really even know because sometimes Danny Ainge will say for one player, but we don't know. He could have been drooling over another one for 7+ years. I mean, I just think his age is also a big part of this as well. He's only 25 years old. And he has a health history or an injury history, but I just think in the open floor, in transition, what he can do for you defensively, I just think the Celtics see a lot of different options there, and they like what they see.
It is interesting, too, because that's obviously the Marcus draft, and that's where you wanted to land top 3 there, and you couldn't get in there. And the reports were that the Celtics definitely liked Gordon, and if he were available at 6, they might have taken him. He went 4. Also, they were really rumored Danny was apparently in love with Dante Exum, who went 5, so thankfully that didn't happen. But Gordon seems like a guy that's been on his radar the whole time.
That's right.
Exum was 5. That was the
Marcus was 6. Yeah,
that was the Wiggins, Jabari, Embiid draft. Which was crazy. And then Randall goes right behind Smart that year as well.
This guy fits the profile of others they've liked in the past. They
like that athlete,
Jaylen Brown. Yeah,
that athletic
right. And remember people said about Jaylen before he was drafted? Oh, he can't shoot. Oh, he won't be a top-notch scorer.
Gordon's been in the league since 2014 now.
Yeah. So here's the problem with Gordon. He's been
around for a bit, and his game hasn't evolved. Here's the thing: if he's not something now, I don't think he's gonna. Despite his age, if he's not something now, I don't know that he's going to be it because, again, while
I disagree with that because he's not going to.
26. Do you see his game evolving much? He's been in the league since 2014.
I do.
He has developed that outside shot.
More? You think so?
He would need to do. He would need to develop it. I mean, Blake Griffin needed to develop an outside shot, or Al Horford needed to develop.
Griffin would be the best case scenario, by far. If
he's not going to be Griffin. That's out the window. That was the comparison early on with him.
Best case scenario.
That's what he would need to do in order to get to that level.
Yeah. What you want to see from him is more catch and shoot productivity, which he hasn't been able to do in Orlando, more cutting. You completely eliminate the pick and roll, as you mentioned, out of his game, John. That's not something he's going to be able to create. And he's not a phenomenal ball handler, shot creator off the dribble. And if you look at his stats right now, his efficiency, that's where all of the stuff has had to come from, especially in recent years where they've had injuries, guys moving in and out of the lineup, and an increased reliability on a guy like him, or reliance on a guy like him to create all their offense. And that's never who he was. That's not who he should be in this league. So you imagine him cutting back line for the Celtics, finding open space on the floor for shots, probably playing more roll man than ball handler in the pick and roll. You want him to do completely different things than he's ever done in his career, which is going to shift his productivity away from what he's been bad at in Orlando because they need him to do it and they're a bad team, to being with other creators and other scorers on the Celtics. He'll be like a 3rd or 4th option on the Celtics, whereas he was a 1st or 2nd on the Magic.
I know, but again, it's so that this is again where it comes down to cost. So if you're talking about Gordon just for 2 firsts, seems okay. He maybe not worth that, but I know Bobby's ready to ship out 7 firsts if it takes it. So look, if it's 2 firsts or 2 firsts and Neesmith or Romeo, it still might be considered an overpay, but you might have to do it anyway. If that's what that deal is. So let's say it's
they're doing it to sign him then, right? You're saying with the idea they're gonna. So does that mean that they would value extending him
over Marcus,
signing him over Smart? Then?
Yeah, and then you've got
that's
right.
kind of what it comes down to, right?
A good question. 6'3" versus 6'8", different positions.
Which is why it's interesting. Smart being included in this may so this is where it's interesting. At face value, moving Smart doesn't seem to make you better, but if you know you're not going to re-sign Smart next year and you are going to try to re-sign Gordon, then you lose nothing by doing that because you weren't going to re-sign him anyway.
Right.
So you're getting something there, taking on some more salary and trying to play little cap gymnastics there to make it work. Maybe Smart's the chip to send over that you can also take Tristan, and that's why it's a bigger deal. And that's why all of those pieces are included. It seems messy, and I don't know if it makes you better. If it's Fournier.
Not only is it messy, they're bordering with this kind of deal in the getting in trouble with the league for cap circumvention, because this isn't a TPE deal, especially as it's being structured by Matt Moore. You'd have to stretch this out into 3 different trades. And if you're effectively trying to make 3 little trades in the 1 TPE trade, the NBA might come down. They probably won't at this point, but they could and say, you're just trying to jump around the cap and do some funky stuff here. Ultimately, I think the cleanest, best way to do this that the Celtics have to hold out on is just sending some pieces and picks for Gordon.
Send the picks for Gordon straight up and use the TPE, and that's it. That's your game.
And I don't know, why did the Magic want Smart? That's so surprising to me.
I don't know. What is interesting, the only other piece that makes it fit if you do the larger deal is Kemba. And he wasn't discussed, but things get interesting there. Because if you do move Kemba, maybe you can sign Smart and extend Tice and Gordon. And things are different for you.
And if you're Orlando, that's not a terrible thing.
Orlando's not terrible
route.
Right.
Like for a couple of years, it's not like you're locked in for 4. You're not getting the whole max deal. So
yeah,
I mean, for someone who obviously can still put up, buckets, can still produce, he won't be your number 1 option. It's all about how they feel about those 2 years. If they can actually still make the playoffs in those 2 years with Kemba at the point, and I don't see why not if that's their overall goal. I don't know.
My question.